Okay, welcome everyone. And today is going to be an exciting topic. We have Kyle Sutton here. We'll be talking about pre-construction condos from an investment perspective and why those may be a good idea to invest in, and are they still a good idea in this environment?
Yeah, Rick, thanks so much for having me. Super excited to do this podcast with you and share this with your audience today. So my name is Kyle Sutton. I'm a real estate agent. I'm based out of downtown Toronto. I mainly work within the pre-construction space, also do some resale, but for the most part, I do work in pre-construction.
Why would someone get into a pre-construction condo, for example, versus a resale?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the biggest thing, especially from an investment standpoint, is leverage, because what you're able to do with pre-construction, most times you're only going to have to pay a 20% deposit up front, and that allows you to leverage your money 5-to-1 while still being able to leverage the entire appreciation of the property. The other advantage is obviously throughout the entire process, you're actually not paying any carrying costs, no mortgage, no taxes, no maintenance fees or anything like that. So it gives you even also an opportunity to even save some more money for these different deposits, as well as when it comes time to actually close on the unit and actually take out your mortgage.
Right.
And also the other big thing too, especially over the past couple of years where we've had, a super hot seller's market, a lot of buyers have trouble with, multiple offers, bidding wars and things like that, where the pre-construction market virtually eliminates that. As long as you're going through a good agent, then you don't have to deal with any of these multiple offer situations, paying hundreds of thousands of dollars over a list or any of that.
Now that 20% that you mentioned, is that due all up front or is that over time?
Yeah, so that's over time. So a lot of builders, they have what they call an extended deposit structure, which pretty much breaks down the 20%, which is the most common percentage for deposit, over a year, 2 years. It could be even longer depending on the developer and the project. So it gives you time to actually pay your 5% or 2.5% increments instead of a lump sum of 20% all up front.
Now that we've gone through pre-construction, why that might be a good idea over resale, the next question I have for you is, where would you suggest? I'm seeing a lot more projects popping up in different outskirt cities away from downtown Toronto, or Toronto in general. I drive around, I see new projects in Brampton, Oakville, Hamilton. Are they each just as good, or would you suggest Toronto?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first thing you're going to look at when you go to some of these other cities outside of Toronto, places, Oakville, Brampton, Milton, or even out east, Durham region, things like that, you're definitely going to be paying less than you're paying here in Toronto. So for those of you that don't have as big of a budget, Toronto could be a bit challenging when we're seeing places start launching at, 1,500, 1,600 or even more per square foot, which can get quite expensive for a lot of people. But there are still some really good areas inside of the GTA that I think are great investments. Places like Oakville that you mentioned, I think Oakville is a fantastic place. One of the big reasons being they have higher income on average than here in Toronto. And they also have, the Halton region actually has the lowest vacancy rate in the GTA. So a place like that where there's such low supply and such high demand for the area, that's a great place where you can actually invest. And you're also going to get it at a significant discount. We're seeing Oakville around, mid 1200s or 1300 a square foot. So it'll save you, $300-400 a square foot compared to something like downtown Toronto. But even a place like Vaughan that you mentioned, I also do like Vaughan, Mississauga, Brampton. Those are all great areas. One of the things I would say is probably more important than the specific city or area that you're planning on investing in. It's more about also the builder. Is the builder a reputable builder that's going to actually complete the project on time, no delays or reasonable delays only, and they're not going to have any of these big price increases, cancellation of the project, or any of these issues that you may have seen over the past year in some of these other not as reputable builders.
Yeah, I've noticed that where, some people have bought something, holding onto it for a few years, and then all of a sudden now the builder is coming back and saying, well, if you still want it, you need to give us whatever, $50,000, $80,000 extra.
A lot of these projects where sold pre-COVID, before COVID even started. And as I know a lot of people understand, the building material cost has exponentially skyrocketed over the past couple of years, which has really eaten into a lot of these developers' margins. And
Right.
if these developers don't have a certain level of profit, then they actually won't get financing. So in that case, the developer's only option is either A, ask for some more money from the people that have purchased, or B, cancel the project entirely. In some of these situations, if those people did have the extra capital available, just because of how much their properties would have appreciated, in a lot of cases, it's actually still a good idea to pay that premium. But for a lot of people, it's an unfortunate situation because, it's a massive unexpected expense, or they have to cancel it entirely.
Okay, so here's a big question that people wonder about. They think pre-construction is a good idea, but they don't know where to begin. If you like it so far, hit that like button. There's so many options out there, different developers. There's different floor plans. You can get north facing, you can face the lake, you can go on, the 40th floor, you can go on the 5th floor. Again, parking, locker. What is, in your opinion, stuff that is the key elements here on what they should be looking for when getting a pre-construction, unit in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking from strictly an investment standpoint, so if you're not actually trying to live there, because that's completely different, that's going to be towards your preferences. But if you're looking strictly from an investment standpoint, typically what you're going to find is lower floor, because as you go up in floors, you're going to go up and they typically have a floor premium. Sometimes it's $2,000 a floor, sometimes $5,000 a floor.
Wow.
And then once you get to higher floors with certain exposures, those are going to start to add more premiums on top of that.
Right.
So if you go with a lower floor, you're going to get a better price. And then also when it comes to a floor plan, especially if you're just trying to get into the market, you've never purchased pre-construction, or even maybe never been purchased any property or an investment property before, the smaller floor plans are always great. Things like the studios, the one beds, or even the one in dens. Some people may think, and I hear this a lot from investors, is, oh, I wouldn't want to live in a 400 square foot studio. Well, the reality is a lot of people will, just because of the demand, because of especially, the price point of a studio versus something like a 2-bedroom. It's a massive, massive difference. So it's an entry level point where it's a commodity product where there's a lot of demand. And if you have the supply, you're the one that's going to be able to easily get a tenant at an easy price point, as well as when you're looking to resale it or sell it, you're able to actually find a buyer very, very quickly, because those type of properties or those type of layouts are in high demand.
Right.
Then when it comes to the actual type of floor plan, it's what you want to make sure is there's not a lot of wasted space, long corridors and hallways. A lot of those will eat into your square footage, which you're still paying for, even if you can't really use it.
Right.
So it's really important to pick a floor plan that is open, doesn't have a lot of wasted space. And what that allows you to do is get the best, sort of bang for your buck on what you're investing in.
I've seen some precons, come without a balcony, some with, and then the parking a lot of times is, $60,000, $80,000 more. Some of them not even available for the smaller units. And then some of them come with a locker. Should investors purchase one or not? What are your views on that?
Yeah, so when it comes to parking and a locker, well, parking for the most part, if you're buying, especially in Toronto, downtown Toronto, number one, parking prices are going to be very, very expensive. And number two, just like you said, a lot of the smaller units, you can't even get a parking spot. They reserve them only for the 2 beds or 2 in dens, a lot bigger units, because they only have a limited number of parking spots.
Right.
Now, from a renting perspective, if you're renting out the unit and you have a parking spot, you can maybe charge a couple $100 a month, maybe $200 a month extra for a parking space. And then in terms on the resale market, depending on the area, again, you're going to look maybe 30 to 50 grand extra for your unit. But when you're paying 80,000, 100,000, I've even seen almost just a little under $200,000 for a parking spot. In a lot of cases, from an investment standpoint, it's not necessarily the best investment. But there is a bit of a caveat. There are certain areas I would recommend a parking. If number one, maybe they have a good incentive where the parking is severely discounted, or number two, if it's an area that not as accessible by transit, or people typically in the area are looking for, or typically have vehicles, then you're going to want to have a parking space, because that's going to be the demand of that area. But in general, I would say you're from an investment standpoint, you're better off without getting the parking. The locker, it's a similar thing. Locker, fortunately, isn't that much more expensive. You know, usually only a few $1,000s. Sometimes they'll even throw it in for free.
Right.
But from a rental standpoint, that's going to be something where it's a little bit of a bonus, but it's not really something you can charge extra for. And then I guess lastly would be the balcony. The interesting thing is with the balcony, even though we live in Canada and, you know, you can only use the balcony for a couple months of the year.
Yeah.
I know for a lot of people, even if they hardly ever use the balcony, it is a deal breaker for them when it comes to purchasing a condo. So getting a balcony is definitely advantageous just for, you know, a lot of buyers and tenants is something that they're looking for.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So now the next question I have for you is, we've been seeing some crazy price increases. Now I'm seeing pre-construction prices per square foot in downtown Toronto, you know, 1,500, 1,600, 1,700, and in places even like Yorkville, you know, dare we say, pushing $2,000 per square foot. You end up being cash flow negative, even if you start putting, never mind 20%, even up to 25, sometimes even 30%, you're lucky if you'll even be cash flow break even. Should people still be investing in these high priced condos?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. And the reality is, yeah, most cases you are going to end up cash flow negative. And unfortunately, that's the reality with even on the resale market for a lot of properties in Toronto, just because of how expensive they are versus the rents that you're going to make. Once you factor in, you know, maintenance, insurance, all these other things you have to pay for, well, that's going to start to eat away at your cash flow. Now, the way that a lot of people look at the pre-construction is it's more of an appreciation play, where you're banking on the appreciation of the property instead of the cash flow. So usually what we'll see, you know, at the end of the day, you'll be able to net positive. If you look at the principal you're paying down minus your cash flow, you'll usually net out a positive, maybe $1,000 a month, maybe $800 a month in net positive in terms of your net worth statement, they could say. So that's more what a lot of people are looking at from an investment standpoint. And especially condos right now, I think they actually have a lot of room to grow over the next couple of years, just because what we've seen a lot on the detached market with, you know, detached in Toronto, about $2 million, it's pretty tough for most people to actually even get into those properties, let alone have the income or the savings available to purchase one. Whereas when you're looking at condos, the ones that are, you know, on average in the $800,000 range, it gives you more opportunity for especially first-time buyers to get into the market, which means I think there's going to be a lot more demand for these condos over the next little bit as these prices on detached and, you know, semi-detached towns are so high.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So it's not really about the cash flow at this time.
Yeah,
it's about the long-term capital appreciation on it. And again, as you said, if you factor in that part of that payment is going towards paying down the principal, you're building that equity and you're still making money over time.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Kyle, there are a lot of projects out there that are coming on the market. I get emails galore from, you know, different realtors. Are there any up and coming projects that you would recommend to any of the viewers? And also, are you able to get them in before the general public?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll answer the second part first, and then I'll mention a couple of the projects. So when it comes to getting in early, I'm sure a lot of you have heard terms like VIP, VVIP, Platinum Access, all these different sort of marketing terms. But essentially what that means is pre-public sales, meaning that you have to go through a broker or an agent like myself in order to get access to these projects. So they don't actually offer them to the general public right away. They'll go through agents, and then later on, they'll do another release where they actually release it to the general public. Right. Now, one big misconception that I hear a lot of people have about this is they think, oh, well, if I wait and go directly through the developer, I can actually save some money because I'm not using an agent. Well, the reality is that's actually probably the worst thing you can do, because if you go directly through the developer, what that means is you're actually not getting any representation. The salesperson from the developer is looking after the developer's best interests. And that's where a lot of times, especially when you get to closing, you're going to run into some unforeseen charges, some fees, and all kinds of things you had no idea because you had no proper representation. And the other thing is the platinum agents, VIP agents, when they do their first initial launch, they are going to typically have the prices lower than when they have their actual public sales. And a lot of times the best floor plans get purchased in the first release, because it's a lot of investors looking to get these, the small floor plans, the 1-bedrooms, the studios, and things like that. So right. For those of you that wait for the actual public sales, a lot of the good units are gone, and you're probably going to be hit with price increase, potentially even multiple price increases for those that weren't going through a broker.
Gotcha.
And then for some projects, yeah, there's a lot of really good projects, some that have already come out this year. And actually, there's a couple I'm working on right now. So I know we're talking actually even about Oakville. There's a great project I'm working on right now, Greenwich Condos in Oakville. Great location in Oakville. Brandhaven's a builder, fantastic builder. And those are actually just started selling over the weekend. So we're working on that one. And another one that I definitely would recommend, it's actually in South Etobicoke, Mississauga on Lakeshore and Dixie Road, called the Lakeview Dixie Club. That actually releases this afternoon that we're recording this video. So wow. A lot of people are excited about that one. It's a great project just across from a new master planned community called Lakeview Village. So it really is a great opportunity right now for investors to actually get in early before this whole community starts.
Okay, excellent. And speaking of which, if there's people out there, investors, or just even wanting to, purchase a condo for themselves to live in, what's the best way that that they could contact you at?
Yeah, it's the best way to get in touch. You can either send me an email. My email is kyle@yourmodernagent.com, or you can check me out on YouTube. So my YouTube is Kyle Sutton. You just type in my name will come up, and you can just reach out to me there. I have all my contact information, my email, my phone number. You can also schedule a call with me directly where I do a complimentary consultation. I'll walk you through the pre-construction process. We'll talk about available projects on the market and what is available that fits what you're looking for the best.
Okay, that's perfect. And I've got your information up on the screen as well, and I will put it in the video description also. So
fantastic.
Thanks again. It's been a pleasure, Kyle. Hope we can do this again in the future, and really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yep, thanks a lot.